Hi everyone. Welcome to Abnormal's monthly threat stream webinar. My name is Amanda and I'm part of the product marketing team here at Abnormal, and I'm so excited to show you guys our most recent case studies on OAuth consent phishing attacks. So today we're going to be going over the threat itself, two case studies that we've seen in the field recently, a demo of our threat log, AI Security Mailbox, as well as like what it's like to see a calendar invite attack in the threat log, and then go over any questions you guys might have at the end. So let's start with the thread itself. OAuth consent is something most users interact with all the time, which helps grant third-party apps access to things like emails, files, or calendars on their behalf. It's designed to be convenient and pretty much seamless. But when attackers do abuse this flow, it creates something much more dangerous. Instead of stealing credentials, they're able to establish silent, persistent access to company data. And this access bypasses MFA, survives password resets, and often goes completely unnoticed because technically the user did grant it. So how does this actually happen? There's a couple of common techniques that we're seeing currently. First, attackers trick users into granting OAuth consent to malicious apps that are designed as trusted services, things like productivity tools or file sharing apps. Secondly, they can also abuse OAuth redirect flows to send users to phishing pages or malware without a clear consent prompt, making the experience feel really legitimate to the end user. And let's talk about the impact, because once that access is granted, attackers can maintain persistent API access through long-lived OAuth tokens, which means that even if a user resets their password or MFA is enforced, the attacker is still in. And from there, they can quietly access mailboxes, files, and identity data without triggering traditional login alerts. There's no login notification, no obvious signals, just ongoing access. So, what can your organization do to prevent this? From a defense standpoint, many teams start by restricting or disabling user consent or limiting it to verified publishers only. And beyond that, it's critical to continuously audit OAuth app permissions and revoke anything that's unknown, unused, or risky. And this is how Abnormal's SPM can come in, security posture management, and help flag what risks that your organization might have, and what things they need to update. But as we get into this later, these controls alone aren't always enough, especially when this activity blends in with legitimate user behavior. So for a case study, I want to walk through what we call the silent third-party app. In this case, the attackers did something very simple. They sent emails that looked like standard Microsoft Teams invites. The message asked users to approve an app that appeared to need just basic permissions. And as a result, a few users did click accept because in their mind, they were just joining a meeting like usual. But what they actually did in the background was that they approved a malicious OAuth application. And with that single click, the attacker was able to gain persistent API access into their environment. At that point, the attacker didn't even need the user's password. They didn't need MFA, and they didn't even need the user to remain compromised because the OAuth token effectively acted like a backstage pass, continued to work even after all the password resets. So why did this work? Because users were allowed to grant app consent without any admin oversight. Because from the system's perspective, this looked completely legitimate, and that's really what made it so effective. As a result, they had API level access to sensitive data without any alerts tied to risky sign-in behavior because the activity came from a trusted app and not a compromised user. So what's important to note here is how often these attacks start with something as simple as a calendar invite or a meeting request. And this is exactly where we're seeing a lot of organizations struggle because even after the malicious email is identified, the associated calendar event often remains in the user's environment. And that's why Abnormal is so happy to announce that we offer auto-remediation for malicious calendar invites, which means that we automatically remove malicious or unwanted calendar invites tied to these emails, including attacks delivered through ICS attachments or embedded invites. We also surface a calendar invite attack insight directly in the threat log, which I'll show later, so teams have a clear visibility into what happened. And behind the scenes, it's designed to be safe and reversible, as for example, when an email is remediated, the associated calendar event is automatically removed. But if that email is later marked safe, the event is restored. So as a whole, like not only are we stopping the initial email, but we're also cleaning up the downstream impact inside a user's calendar. And that's ultimately super critical because as we've seen in this example, a single click on something that looks completely routine can lead to much deeper access. A way I like to think about it is that we didn't give the attacker a key to the house. We actually let them bring their own key and told the security guard to trust it. But yeah. So for our case study two, this attack looks a little different, but it's also just as effective. So instead of asking for app approval, the attackers removed that step completely. They sent e-signature lure emails, something that users are very used to seeing. A document for signature, a quick action to review and sign, nothing really out of the blue. But embedded in this email was a crafted OAuth URL using what's called prompt equals none. And what that means is that the consent screen never appeared at all. So when a user clicked on the link, they weren't asked to approve anything, and instead they were silently redirected through a legitimate Microsoft login flow and then sent to an attacker-controlled site. From the end user's perspective, everything looked normal. So you could ask, like, why did this work? Basically, attackers were able to weaponize the OAuth redirect itself by using a trusted Microsoft domain to mask the attack and make the flow appear legitimate. And importantly, no app permissions were ever granted. So identity controls had nothing to evaluate. There's no risky consent, no abnormal login, no clear signal to detect or block what was happening. And the result is exactly what you'd expect. Users were redirected to credential harvesting phishing pages or malware downloads. And in some cases, this led to full command and control access. And all this happened without stolen tokens, without granted permissions, and just with a single click. So while the first case gave attackers persistent access, this one shows something just as concerning because they don't even need consent anymore to get in. And now I'd love to move over to the threat log to see how Abnormal does fight against these threats, specifically calendar invite attacks. So here, I go to the threat log. This is one of the emails that Abnormal caught, and it says invitation review October payment details, and this is the meeting details. And as you can see, it's very high risk because of finance approvals when it comes to like monetary requests. So we were able to do that. So here we can see we have a tech score of 100, meaning that we're nearly positive that this is a malicious attack. And it was flagged here. And so suspicious financial request. The email contains language and patterns associated with financial fraud attempts. The uncommon attachment type, like I said earlier, we're able to detect suspicious ICS attachments. And it's really seen from the sender. So this is what really flagged our system. And then this is where I want to highlight, we're able to now navigate and flag calendar invite attacks. And this is the insight that I mentioned earlier, because this is flagged as a calendar invite because it exploits the calendar invite system to bypass traditional email security filters, and it created an event message with a file that could be used to deliver malicious content, taking advantage of the user's trust in calendar invites. And here we can see that, like in the actual email, there was just it was associated with a malicious, because it was a malicious email, the associated malicious invite was also flagged. And another way that Abnormal is also stopping these threats is just using our AI security mailbox, where the end user, we know that end user triage can take hours of time for you guys. So AI security mailbox really helps alleviate this. For example, we have here Luke. We are able to remediate campaigns. So once an end user does report one email to the phishing mailbox using the phish report button, we're able to catch all similar emails that are also in that campaign without your security team having to manually search through inboxes to find associated messages. So here we can see that like 4 emails were grouped by abnormal, and we can go into here. And then this takes us back to the threat log where we can see the actual email, the insights, why we thought it was suspicious, and basically connect it all together without having a manual analyst review. So once you might ask, once the end user does report the email, what actually happens? So here we can see if we go into settings, an AI security mailbox, is that you have 3 separate different options to see to have your end user see what happens once they report the email. So here we have Gen AI responses, which is super helpful because these responses are customized. You're able to customize it. You can say use a formal tone for VIPs, use professional language, add a security tip at the end. It's all up to you guys on how you want the end user to see and how they can learn from reporting these messages. And in this portal, we can also see, you can also ask the AI security specialist how to like craft your AI analyst the best. So for example, you can chat and say, what are some characteristics of phishing emails? For example, phishing emails exhibit the following characteristics, and just learn from it and see how we can make the custom instructions as strong as possible. You also have the option of typical preset responses. For example, you can do safe, spam, malicious, and there's different variables that you can add. So it's a very clear-cut template. We do recommend Gen AI responses just because it is personalized and the end user is able to interact with the our AI analysts. And if they have further questions beyond that initial, oh, your email was deemed as safe or malicious, and they want to learn more about it, they can respond back to the AI analyst, and the AI analyst responds back. For customers in between preset and Gen AI responses and don't fully want to roll it out, we also have Gen AI responses for select users, which is Gen AI subsetting. And so you're able to subset up to 50 email addresses for who you want to test out the Gen AI responses to. And this is a really good way to roll out Gen AI responses in general, just to see how end users are feeling about it, what corrections can be made, and how they're learning. And what's really cool about these Gen AI responses and preset responses as well is that you can also add images, headers, and footers to really help create your brand and visualize, help make it more legitimate on these AI analyst responses, so people are able to trust and know that like these are coming from your security team and company as well. But yeah, when it comes back, we'll go back to the slides. And that was the demo. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer. I know Elias raised his hand. Feel free to type in the chat and I can also like read out the question. Um, but yeah. So we have one question that was privately sent, and it said, how does AI Security Mailbox actually fit into our existing report fish workflow, and what happens after a user reports an email? To answer that, AI Security Mailbox plugs into the workflow you guys already have. We don't have to introduce a new button, because whatever we use today, whether it be the native Microsoft or Google report button, know before, or a forward to Security Mailbox, we just need a copy of the reported email into Mailbox that abnormal monitors. In the upcoming weeks, we're also going to be releasing a fish report button that is abnormal specific. So that also connects to our AI phishing coach, and that will be released in the next month or so. So basically, going back to the question, once a user reports something and it lands in the mailbox, we run through a series, second passive detection using powerful models. And if we decide that it's malicious, we automatically pull that message out of every affected mailbox and not just the person that reported it. And so the value is that if something slips past your controls, AI Security Mailbox gives you your users a one-click way to escalate it. Abnormal does a heavy analysis, and remediation is fully automated across all recipients. But yeah, Elias, feel free to unmute and ask a question if I see your hand raised. Or it might be a mistake, feel free. Um, Another question I see is, what will my end users see, and can we trust AI generated responses? This is a really good question. We have a lot of hesitation around transitioning to Gen AI responses. So basically, end users get an email back that really closes the loop in terms of automated triage. They can get, we analyzed the message you reported and determined it was safe, spam, malicious, and here's why. And that's what's really cool about our Gen AI responses. That's our differentiating factor, is that we customize exactly why the message was safe, was malicious, was spam, and helps the end user learn and educate if they have any more questions about a specific malicious email, like what are other key indicators of malicious like calendar invites, and our AI will also tell them what are some other key factors to look out for in the future. And like I said earlier, you're able to choose between three response modes. There's preset templates, generative AI responses, and Gen AI subsetting, which allows you to have mostly preset, but also support Gen AI responses for a subset of 50. And like I said earlier, you're able to stay in full control of tone, wording, and guardrails, and you can start in a very safe configuration and open things up over time. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat or unmute. Um, But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute or chat at any time. I'm so happy to host you guys. Thank you so much for coming. We also have some upcoming abnormal threat stream webinars next month with Aaron Orchard, one of our best SEs, with Authorize and Abuse, the evolution of Toad and platform weaponization, as well as in May with David, another PMM on the team, where he details how lateral phishing hides in plain sight. Um, but yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great Friday and weekend. Thank you.